All right. Hello and good afternoon, YouTube. It's my first stream. It's the first one I have done in quite a while, and a friend has challenged me to paint 20 Gnoblars, little goblins, gobos, whatever you want to call them, in an hour. Can I do it? I don't know. Maybe. I'm going to try, and if I can't do it in an hour, then it'll become a case of how many can I do in an hour. So they're already primed gray sear, and I'm basically going to slap chop them, do a quick dry brush with Yulthwan Gray to give them a pre-highlighting, and then I have 4 different green colors because if you look at the picture on the web store, they do have different skin tones. So I have Militarum green, Striking Scorpion green, and that is what I used to do my prototype here. So, and these are just going to be tabletop ready, obviously. These are going to be speed painted, not exquisitely painted, because I don't think I could do that quickly in an hour. But I've also got a Athonian camo shade, Coelia green shade, and then for like their vests and stuff, I'm going to use reds. I have Flesh Terrors red, Berserker blood shade, and then for weapons and stuff, I was going to use Lead Belcher and Snakebite leather for like the wooden bits. So have clock in the background here. It's actually a brand new clock. I can't change the second hand, but I'm going to go ahead, put the battery in, and that will start the 1 hour clock. Oh, come on. We're wasting time here. Go back on the wall. There we go. Okay. So, and I already shook my paints. I have a little Vivo paint mixer that I use for stirring paints. It's super handy, especially if you have like some kind of a muscle condition. Like I have tendonitis, so like shaking paint cans for a long time gets actually quite painful, but this spares me that pain. So we're not being pretty here, just being practical. Just a quick dusting to add some pre-highlights. So, hope you're all having a good Friday. My day so far has been not uneventful, but quiet. But it's, I used to stream on Twitch, actually started about a year ago. And I was doing writing then, and it was fun, but I had to stop late last year because my schedule got a bit too busy. And I've missed it. I've missed like the interactivity with people. I miss some of the people I got to meet. But it's good to be back, even if it is making me nervous. But I'm just naturally a nervous person. A nervous pervis, as a man once said. Thankfully, these guys are pretty small, and it's not like I have any big flat areas to worry about. So, contrast paints can kind of pool in large areas, but there aren't any large areas on these little guys. They're pretty small. And they have some funny poses. And some of them have, weapons, like that guy has a flail there, or ball and chain, whatever you want to call it. A couple guys have axes, a couple have hammers, and then a couple just have broken bottles. So, thank you, Hand of Mold. Gnoblars, I can do it. I hope so. I hope so. I'm only a couple of minutes in, and I've gotten the pre-highlighting done on, that's number 9. This will be 10. And I'm not going to do some of the details. Like I'm not going to bother painting their eyes, and if they have any teeth showing, I'm not going to bother with those. Just going to go as quickly and efficiently as possible. So, how's your day going? Anyone out there? Hand of Mold or anyone else? Hope you're having a good one. All right, wow, this guy's actually got two knives. But yeah, these guys here, just a broken bottle. So, a standing army, they are not. So, and I know this is a 40K journey, and I know these little guys are Age of Sigmar, but we'll turn a blind eye to that today. And for the next video, I've got some Space Marine heroes coming up, and they're all shown as Blood Angels, but they are actually not chapter specific. Like they don't have any Blood Angels iconography, so probably going to do them in a bunch of different chapters, like one Ultramarines, one Blood Angel, one Dark Angel, maybe one White Scar, one Salamander. Okay. Looking good. Almost there with the dry brushing. So, and I'm not using a fancy dry brush either. This is just a Wet and Wild makeup brush I got at the grocery store. I think it was like $2. And these cheap makeup brushes actually make really, really good dry brushes. You know, you don't need to spend a lot of money on a dedicated dry brush. These will work just fine. Though, a word of warning, I've noticed, I don't know if it's specific to these brushes or specific to the color, but if you are dry brushing red, I don't know why, it sticks in the bristles, even if you clean pretty quickly. And if you are dry brushing a light color after that, like a white or a gray or something, it can tint it a little red. I'm not sure why that happens. Again, I'm not sure if it's unique to these brushes or if it's something that happens to dry brushes in general, and you shouldn't, you should just avoid dry brushing red. I don't know. Okay, that is the dry brushing done. Fantastic. Now I'm going to start with the skin. I'm going to start with Militarum Green. And I've already shaken these up, so they are good to go. So the thing with Slap Chop is that yes, it's fast, it's quick, it's efficient, but it's also kind of unforgiving, and you really want to be careful not to overlap colors. Otherwise, fixing them may be problematic. I'm trying to keep these facing the camera too, so you can actually see what I'm doing. But just starting at the top with the arms. Just going to get a layer of green on there. He's got a, what is that? He's got like a pot for a helmet. That's pretty cool. So, and I'm not going to bother with teeth or anything because that will be a later step. Or, if you wanted to get these more tabletop ready or like display ready, then I would bother. Then I would go through and do the teeth. But for what we're doing today, just as quick as possible. Without overlapping colors, because that creates problems. All right, almost done on number one here, or at least first color on number one. Make sure I didn't miss anything, because even tabletop ready, the last thing you want is a big spot of gray that you forgot to paint. Okay, looking good. One down. Ah! I don't know what these guys talk like. Though, if it's anything like the orcs portrayed in 40K, they all sound kind of gruffly British. Like I love in the 40K Space Marine game, if you're shooting away at an orc sometime and you haven't killed them yet, sometimes they'll say like, "Oh, you Space Marine, stop shooting me." I mean, it's kind of him to ask to stop shooting him, but sorry, buddy, not going to happen. Okay, this guy's got a little bit of ear there. That's kind of tricky. There we go. So, in the brush I'm using, in case you're wondering, is an Army Painter Hobby Base Coating brush. I haven't used it too much, but so far I'm liking it. It came in a box, like I'm not sure if it's like a loot crate kind of thing, but it's a Jazza's box that had a whole bunch of Army Painter stuff in it, a bunch of basing materials, and pretty much anything and everything you would need to get started miniature painting. It had some cool um, miniatures that look kind of like Space Marines, and then another two models of kind of like a steampunk guy kneeling at a grave, and then a ghost, presumably that goes somewhere nearby. And the miniatures are cool. And even if you've got hobby tools, this box had pretty much everything in it, and it had good quality stuff. So, Jazza's Box is the name, and I'm not getting paid, but Jazza, if you're listening, maybe a little consideration. So, two down, moving through. Okay, and it looks like this guy is wearing a hood, but it doesn't go all the way over his head. Like it kind of stops partway up his nose. So we're going to leave that and paint the rest of that black, but we'll do that at a later step. For now, just got to finish those greens. And since I've got 4 different shades of green, I figure in 20, Gnoblars, or Gnoblars, whatever you want to call them, Gobos, Bodgers, Gretchen, Grots, they're pretty much all the same. Just figure I'll do 5 of each green color. And that should give some nice variety. And before I got them going, I arranged them according to weapon type, just because I'm a little OCD like that. I like to have that kind of organization. Okay. Number 3. These guys are pretty cool. I think there's like your basic troops are kind of overlooked sometimes, in favor of character models, which are, of course, more detailed. But there's a certain charm in these little guys. So, and hopefully next stream, I'll have some music. When I streamed on Twitch, there was a Twitch music player that had licensed music that you could use in your streams, but that's only for Twitch. I don't know if there is something equivalent for YouTube. I know YouTube has an audio library of songs and sound effects that you can use license free, but I don't know how that applies to streaming. So that requires more research to be conducted at a later time. But hopefully next time some tunes. I mean, yeah, if I could put on music in the background, I mean, I do have my stereo set up here in my studio and plenty of, well, pretty much any audio format you could want. I have vinyl, CD, cassette, but I don't want to get into any rights issues. Best to just avoid those. All right. Ooh, 15 minutes. I don't know whether I'm doing well or not. Haven't done a whole lot of speed painting, or really haven't done any. It's an interesting experience, though. At the very least, it forces you to prioritize, to really ask yourself, what do I really want to paint on this model? What can I do without? Because painting every little detail on every single model, painting everything up to display quality, that is going to take a significant chunk of time. Not that it's not a worthy endeavor, but, you know, uh, I got a life. I have other things to do. But, and I think, I don't know, it might get a little monotonous painting every single model up to display quality, you know? Not that I'd get bored, but I don't know. I feel like it might be, well, certainly taxing for sure, especially since I developed a habit that I understand is fairly common to modelers. I kept buying models even before I'd finished the previous ones, and I did this a lot during the pandemic. And I also build and paint 135 scale armor, so like tanks, armored personnel carriers, stuff like that. And I got a whole closet. Well, not a whole closet, a shelf in a closet. Be fair, I'm not like a hoarder or anything, but I still got a fair few tanks that are awaiting painting and construction. Because I also have a thing for completion and like series. So, like, I have some patent tanks. Have an M48 A5 and an M60 A2. Um, but I like to show the evolution of things. So I also have an M46 and an M47 that need paint. And I have the line of Abrams. So I have the original M1, the M1A1, M1A2, and then a late M1A2 that has the Tusk, the Tank Irvin survivability kit that's got like passive and reactive armor tiles, a gun shield for the loader, and a bunch of other cool stuff that got added to the Abrams series as a result of our experience in Iraq and Afghanistan. But yeah, I haven't built a lot of tanks in the last few years, mainly because I've been busy with 40K stuff, but I don't know. Time to get back to it, maybe. Okay. Oop, still got ears. Get your ears, the little guy. Okay, this one's pretty fun. It's actually two guys on top of each other, one sitting on the other's shoulders. Oh, almost missed his face. Kind of important. Okay, call them good. Finish up with the Militarum green and move on to Striking Scorpion green. This is a bit more of your traditional bright green skin color. A little too bright? personal taste. I don't think it's too bright. It looks really bright in the bottle, but on my test model, it didn't come out all that bright. But it certainly shows off the pre-highlighting, the the Yulth gray we dry brushed on before we started painting, and that's what we want. That's kind of the whole point behind deal with the highlights for you, so that you don't have to do it later. Let the contrast paint handle that work. So, and I guess if I really feel like it, I've got an Army Painter Orc Skin speed paint. Might try that for a comparison later on. But for now, I'm just going to stick with what I already have mixed. And it looks like this guy's wearing like a wolf head or something. But his ears are still sticking out of it, so we'll definitely get those. And get his hand here. And while we don't want to overlap colors, it's not so much a big deal if we overlap onto metal parts, like the handle of this flail here. If we get something on that, that's not a big deal because the metallics will cover it up. Because most metallics are pretty opaque unless you water it down a lot, like a lot. And I don't really like doing that. I mean, yeah, you can do that and slap chop with metallics, but frankly, I don't think it looks all that good. I think it looks just, well, watery. So tend not to do that. And I do work with metallics a lot. My main army, which I guess is a little funny to say because I don't actually play the game, but my main guys are Grey Knights, and they are all steel, blued steel color. So I'm pretty sure I'm running more than 3 minutes a guy, and I've only put the first color on them. So, but again, if I can't do all 20 in an hour, then it'll become how long to do all 20? Gotta say though, they are going relatively quickly. And I know they're small models and just doing a basic job, but still, I can understand the appeal in speed painting because I've certainly had a lot of times while modeling where I've gotten a little impatient, where I've been working on like a big showpiece for ages and I just want it done. I just want it finished and off the table. And these guys will be finished and off the table relatively quickly. So I guess they've got that going. But yeah, there is definitely a certain satisfaction in seeing quick results. Nope. Forgot half his face there. Don't want to do that. I've been watching a lot of the old Bob Ross episodes, and he uses a wet on wet technique. And it's really amazing to watch, but it's really cool to see him push a brush into the canvas and get, tree branches, and to see it done, you know, quickly, it's really cool. And it's inspiring, makes me think, hey, maybe I could do that myself, which of course is the idea. He wanted to show people a relatively simple method that gave good results and didn't take you 6 months to finish a painting. But it was also humbling to hear him in an early episode, I think it was season one or season two, hear him talk a little bit about his mentor and about how he learned the wet on wet paint technique, and how he'd been, a more traditional painter before and had taken days, weeks to paint, leaves on a tree, when the technique he uses in the show can do it in seconds. And I guess airbrushing is kind of the same thing. You get super quick results that look pretty good, once you've got some practice. That, and there's some techniques with airbrushing that you just can't really do without an airbrush. I mean, you could try, but I don't know, for my money, just easier to get a good airbrush, get a compressor, try it yourself. At the very least, it can save you money on rattle cans for base coating. You can just use your airbrush to do the same thing. So I know this is a 40K journey. I know these guys are Age of Sigmar, but I gotta say, Age of Sigmar has some really cool models. And I've kind of had my eye on the Stormcast Eternals. Like, I really love the look of them. And I don't know, maybe eventually when I whittle down the pile of potential a little bit, I'm not going to call it the pile of shame, because that's frankly kind of depressing. But when I whittle down the pile of potential a bit, I don't know, maybe I might try some Age of Sigmar models for something different. Not half bad. But I really encourage anyone watching at any point, whether it's now or in the future, if all you do is paint just 40K or just Age of Sigmar, try something different. There are lessons to be learned from building and painting different types of models. So, for example, I don't really do it with Space Marines, but I'm kind of thinking about it. Weathering, making your models look like they've been in combat for a little bit, or making your tanks look like, they've been out in the field and haven't just driven directly off the factory floor. Weathering is, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. It's some really cool techniques. It can really make your models look more alive. And I learned how to do a lot of that through 135 scale armor, building the tanks. Because really, tanks are big, dirty machines. And the only time you see like a super clean one is either when it's just come out of the wash or just rolled off the factory floor, or it's in a museum. But even then. So weathering was really important for that, and doing something like aircraft, like 1/72nd scale aircraft, can teach you about other weathering, can teach you about color modulation. Because if you look at like most modern aircraft, yeah, they're all painted one color, but those colors change over time. They get changed in the sun, in the wind. They might pick up some oil stains. They do look different. That's what color modulation is. It's slightly altering a color to give it, a bit more, a bunch of different possible effects, like more pastel or kind of a grimy look, or and then chipping. That's another one because pretty much any military equipment is that has paint on it. That paint's going to chip eventually, and chipping is a fine skill. It can be pretty simple, but also really complicated, and it can be a very, very time-consuming process depending on how you choose to go about it. But the effect can be amazing. But you just gotta. One of the tricks with chipping is that you have to be judicious. It's real easy to overdo chipping. And if you have a model that's like just covered in chips, that's just not realistic. It doesn't look good from a realism standpoint or from a modeling standpoint. It'll make the paint job too busy, you know? Just won't look good. But hopefully these are turning out okay. Rounding the corner on number 10 here, and oof, about halfway through my 30 minute or my 60 minutes. So yeah, maybe the other steps will go faster, but I'm going as fast as I can without sacrificing a huge amount of quality. So I want these to still look good, on a gaming table. So, and that also is another thing I've kind of learned about in painting recently is that what looks good on the table and come on, why is my paint jar not closing? What looks good on the table and what looks good like up close or in a display cabinet may not always be the same thing. So you got to decide, what do you want for your model? How do you want it to look? I'm pretty sure this guy he's got a helmet. So I will leave that be. Oh yeah, very different green color, especially having come straight off the striking scorpion green, which is a very bright green. This is Athonian camo shade, and so far, I'm liking it. It looks pretty cool. I was actually pretty impressed looking at the page for these guys on the Games Workshop web store to get, a sense of how they should be painted. They were really like there's variation in their skin tone was quite remarkable. A lot of variation. Okay, and I think this guy he's actually wearing pants, like full pants. So you can call him good. That went faster than some of the others. So in painting with shades versus contrast, it's a different experience. The shades are much thinner than the contrasts, so they flow into recesses a lot better and a lot faster. But you got to be careful that they don't pool because contrast already has an issue with pooling. You don't want it to collect in one place, because then you're going to have a big dark spot in the middle of your model that's probably not going to look very good. But with shading, you got to kind of watch out for the raised areas too. You want to make sure the paint doesn't flow off the raised areas and leave you with a big white streak down your gobbo's face. Or his nose, probably, because their noses seem to take up rather a lot of their faces. Okay. So that's 12. I'm at 34 minutes. Okay, so this guy's got a mask on, or maybe it's a bandana. I don't know. He's got something around his head, so don't need to do the whole thing. Just his nose and his jaw, and we're good. Oop, I dropped my brush. I have retrieved my brush. All is well. Okay, well, let me get the back of his arm there. Don't want to leave that gray. That would look unsightly. And if you're just joining us, I am attempting to paint 20 of these Gnoblars, or Gnoblars, goblins, gobbos, whatever you want to call them, in an hour. And I'm at 35 minutes. So they were already primed with gray cere when my friend gave them to me. Gave them a quick dry brush with Yulthwan gray. That's a really light kind of blue gray. And that served to pre-highlight them. Now I am going through and doing their green color before I give them like red vests and black hoods for those that have them. Okay, I think we're good, because this is another one that has pants as opposed to cut-off shorts, like so many of their compatriots. Yeah, not exactly big on armor, these little guys. At least these ones are. I don't know if they're like armored Gnoblars. I want to say there were armored Gretchen in earlier editions of 40K, but I don't remember. Though that would be kind of funny, mega armored Gretchen. We're doing good, making good time. And if it turns out I can't paint 20 of these or 20 of these guys in an hour, then it'll be how long to paint them. I just realized I have a little backtracking to do, because some of these guys have closed-toed shoes and some don't. Some just have open-toed sandals. So I'm going to need to go back over a few. Do this one before I backtrack would be nice. Thankfully, you don't have to do the whole thing, just the front there with the toes. They're wrapped otherwise. Go back here and take care of these guys a little quick. There we go. Okay, and I'll come back and fix the other two after I finish this line here, which I'm going to do with Coelia Green Shade. So, and this guy also looks like he's wearing some kind of animal helmet. So I'm not going to paint his whole head because I don't think most of it is his own head. I think it's like a wolf head or something. Can't really tell. But for sure, we'll get it a different color. And absolute worst case scenario, just come back, reprime the whole thing with Gracier or black or white or whatever, and just start again. Because nothing is permanent on your model unless you want it to be. Paint can always be stripped and redone. Might be a pain, but it can be done. And there have been some times I wanted to where, I finished a model in a state of impatience and I wanted to go back and give it its due. Doesn't happen very often, but it has happened. His knee is bent here. That's a little tricky. That knee's got a tabard, or that's part of his vest. So don't want to overlap the color there. Okay. That is it for the Athonian camo shade. Would have been a funny goblin gif, but YouTube. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'll do TikTok at some point, but we'll see. Okay, these guys are a little tricky. They're holding their clubs. It's kind of hard to see down here. They're holding those pretty close. So this is definitely going to be a careful where you paint moment. Because I want them to have brown wood clubs and not like green blue wood clubs. So I'm kind of surprised. The Coelia green shade is quite blue. Or at least it's more blue than I thought it was. I haven't used it a whole lot. It's not bad. And I think it's still something, a color that you could see an orc or a goblin having for skin tone, but I don't know, just different, unexpected. Okay, and I don't think he has a helmet or anything. His hands are a little tricky. The model's lost a little definition down there. It's a side effect of the molding process. It's just, these have to be designed for slide molds. That's just a block of steel that moves horizontally. So not always perfectly shaped in order to get it out of the mold. Okay. Oh, his feet. Almost forgot his feet. Actually, that's good. Huh. So He's got a shoe on one foot, but only one foot. I think this will turn out pretty cool though. With all the different skin tones, they'll look varied. Even though, a couple of these have identical poses, they'll still look a bit different. And that'll be a really good thing. You want your models to be distinctive. Well, I would want that anyway. I wouldn't want them all looking exactly the same. But, you know, that may be desirable. Like if you're doing, I don't know, like Star Wars models and you have a whole bunch of clone troopers, having them look all the same may be exactly what you want. But it's all about what you want. These are, they're your models. Do what you want with them. Don't let anyone tell you it has to be a certain way if that's not the way. How am I doing? 44 minutes. All right. Well, if I get all of them skin toned, that won't be bad. Well, skin toned and pre highlighted. So, and I'm impressed. My armor painting hobby base coating brush is doing well. So I'm pretty sure this is a natural hairbrush instead of a synthetic. So synthetic brushes, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're good, but they tend to hold paint a bit more than natural bristles. They get gummed up faster. You want to clean them more often. So that, and it's been my experience that pretty much every synthetic brush will, like the end will curl over time. Natural brushes, in my experience, don't do that. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Having that little hook at the end of your brush allows you to paint, things that might be a little tricky otherwise. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Just depends on how you look at it. Like if I spent $30 on a really nice synthetic brush only to have the ends curl on me, I might be a little horked off. Did I get? I did not get. Oh, he's got a hood. That's right. Though I missed his right ear. They all have their ears sticking out. Though I suppose if I had big, long, floppy ears like this, I'd probably have mine sticking out too. And this guy does not have a helmet or a hood. So we can just go to town on his noodle here. Okay, just a little bit between his leather wraps and his shirt. It makes that easy. I used to use inks a lot when I was younger, and then I kind of stopped using them, but getting back into them a little lately. Not necessarily to like cover big areas, which you can do with inks. They do it pretty quickly. Like kind of like the dip that Army Painter has. But inks can also be mixed with acrylics, which is what I was doing, trying to experiment and paint a gray night like the studio does, because I've always been a fan of the studio scheme. Okay. Just need a little bit. His legs kind of sticking out from his pants there. Looking good. Last one to get the skin tone. Then I'll go back and fix the feet on some of those guys. Though there aren't many. Some do have closed-toed shoes, just not all of them. And this guy does have a hood, so don't go all the way back. Almost there. Just got to get his hands. Oh, I see. I was going to say, I'm not exactly sure what he was carrying there. It's a loot bag, or at least a bag of something. I don't think I really want to know what this little guy'd be carrying. I mean, it could be pretty much anything, but okay. Beautiful. Just going to come back with the striking scorpion and get some feet. And same thing with the militarum. And then we'll be moving on to their vests and shirts. Let's see. You're good. You're pretty much good. Good. You definitely have toes sticking out. Okay. And all of them have some toes sticking out. So we'll go back to our militarum green. And it looks like the left feet are all covered. It's just the right feet that have toes sticking out. Here we go. Yeah, all of these guys look good for different reasons. If I had to pick a favorite color for them, I think it would actually be this one. I think it would be the Militarum Green. I think it looks really good on these little guys. But the Striking Scorpion is also a bit more like traditional, at least traditional for me. Like I started the game in second edition, and so everything was like a lot of really bright colors. And if you saw orcs, they were pretty close to that color. Okay. That is it for the skin tones. And I'm at 52 minutes. All right. And I've got two colors here for the shirts. Got Flesh Terrors Red and Berserker Bloodshade. I think I'll probably do half and half. just so there's some variety. Ooh, that's right. This is the bottle I have that's kind of one of the little joints on it is broken. Okay. Ooh, that is thicker than anticipated. Now comes the part where we really have to be careful not to overlap colors. This is why I'm pretty confident I am not going to finish the rest of the parts in 7 minutes because this requires more care than the last step. Because I want this guy to have a red shirt and not red armpits. At least that's what I'm going for. I mean, there might be valid reasons for him to have red armpits, but still, ick. Thanks. Yeah. Cool variety of colors, though. Interesting way to test out different combinations on different models. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think adding some slight variation, even among models that are like wearing uniforms, some slight variation probably would happen and would look pretty cool. Like, I think unless you're looking at an army that's, standing at like parade formation or has just been issued with new uniforms, there's going to be some variation in those uniforms. Some guys are going to have some equipment that others don't, or may have older equipment that's a little weather beaten, maybe a little off color. So, yeah, variety is good, I would say. We are concentrating. We are being careful not to overlap. Whew. Yeah, this step is going to take a lot more time than the last one. I can already tell. So I don't want to leave any gaps. Like a gray gap between red and green just would not look very good. And I want these to be speedy, but not garbage. Okay. Looking good. One down. And this guy has the same thing, same setup. So I am glad I grouped these guys together by general pose and weapons. That way I kind of get a sense what to do on one of them, and then the next one right after, those lessons are directly applicable. I don't have to get halfway down the line and remember, oh, right, there was some kind of issue with this. What was it? Oops. Oh, that's right. That's what it was. Don't want that. And the thought occurs that individually these guys wouldn't be all that threatening, but with a huge horde of them bearing down on you, even if I was well armed and armored, I'd still, I don't know, even if I didn't have second thoughts, I would still probably be like, oh, this is going to be a slog. because fighting a lot of these little guys is bound to get kind of pokey. But with their little hammers, little daggers, axes. Almost there. These guys have a little bit more shirt than some of the others do. Some of these guys just have vests. Does have a shield, or at least part of a shield. It looks like it's been chopped off. It also looks like it's got a chaos symbol on it, or at least that's what it looks like to my eyes. So it's very possible that this is a pilfered shield, which would be pretty on brand for orcs, especially in the 40k universe. They're all about pilfering and looting and using looted goods. Okay. Oh, almost. Last little bit here. Beautiful. And we are basically at an hour. So, having answered the question, can I paint 20 Gnoblars in an hour? No. No, I cannot. But now it becomes a question, after I take a quick drink, of how long it will take me, or how much can I do in 2 hours? And I'm not being paid to advertise Powerade. That's just what I had to drink. Just what I had on hand. Trying to get it so it doesn't leak everywhere. Okay, this guy has a similar torso setup. I see. And I also see that I forgot to paint part of his left arm. So I guess that's another advantage of doing this kind of in an assembly line by color. Thank you. Thank you. Good effort. Yep. I tried. I tried. This is also my first time speed painting literally anything. So I would say not bad for a first try. And really probably not bad at all. Though I don't know how quickly some people can speed paint things. These are also the first Gnoblars I've ever done. So I suppose if I had like 200 of them under my belt, they would be faster. But still, it's a fun experience trying something new and rising to a challenge. Even if it didn't pan out. Still fun. And like I said earlier, good to do something different. This guy's chest is a little fiddly to get to. But that is okay. That's why I like using smaller brushes. That and anymore, I don't know. I feel like my hands shake a little bit. Not a lot and not all the time, but if I've been working for a while or if I have strained them or if I'm having a tendonitis episode like I have recently. Oop! I dropped him. Aye. All right. Anyway, using smaller brushes is advantageous so that I don't kind of blorp paint out all over the place. It takes longer to do things, but I feel like better to take a little longer and wind up with something that looks good than try to rush it and have it look like garbage. Good. Number 3. We have the same vest for this little guy. Same loincloth, too. Knobbler down. We got a knobbler down. Yep. But we got him. We got him. This one's actually a little bit easier. His head is a little bit closer to his chest. So it kind of covers up the visible area a little bit. So if the paint isn't perfect across his chest, it's not visible, or at least not easily. And if you're looking at it, on a tabletop, you never know. Unless someone came by and picked up your miniature to scrutinize it. But if they were doing that, I'd be like, hey, yo, is that your model? No, then put it down. It's rare, but I remember years and years ago, I brought my models to a game store for an event, and some kid just came by and randomly picked up one of my Grey Knights, and it was like, aha, please put that down. That's not yours. You didn't spend hours to build and paint it. But thankfully rare. And especially rare these days because I don't play the game. I don't know, I still like the lore, still love the worlds, the models, the painting. Just not a huge fan of playing the game. Though I did have fun with Armies on Parade last year. I took bronze and I got myself a little frame for the certificate. You can't see it, it's up on the wall over there. But it was fun. And I know for this year that I need a diorama. I just had a battle tile, one of those big 2 foot by 2 foot, and put my models on it. Wasn't bad. It was painted, but this year I will do better. Or I guess more, I should say. So here's the duo. The one on top of the other's shoulders. This reminds me of an old Monty Python sketch. I think it was Archaeology Today, where Michael Palin was a show host about archaeology, and he had John Cleese and Terry Jones, who were archaeologists. And rather than asking them questions about archaeology, he just asked them how tall they were. The Master Blaster fighting stance. Pretty much. But yeah, towards the end of the sketch, they started getting on top of each other's shoulders, and it ends with a brawl between 6 people, 3 each on shoulders. It was hilarious. But yes, Master Blaster. A little bit of classic Mad Max. Yeah, I like Mad Max. They're all good for different reasons. Like the first one, obviously, is the progenitor. It has, the virtue of being the first and awesome. But the second one, I really liked because it was kind of quiet, like a quiet action movie. Because if you count it up, I think Max says less than 100 words the entire movie. Like he says almost nothing, and yet is still a pretty cool hero. Even if in that one he's kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say an anti-hero because he's not like actively dislikable, I don't think, but he's not a cop anymore. He's more just about survival, which I can't really say I blame him because his world's kind of gone to heck in a handbasket. Well, not kinda. It has. Nuclear war will do that. So this is a little tricky getting his chest without getting his ears or the ears of the guy beneath him. But I'll get it. I'll get it. It'll take a little finagling, but I'll get it. Okay, now to get your front, the lower guy's front, without coloring the scarf he's got around his noodle. I guess it probably wouldn't be all that bad since I was planning to do that a darker color, but just in case, take a little bit of extra care here. Okay, almost there. Well, thanks. Yeah, the contrast paint on the skin faces looks great. Did its contrast magic? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. I'm really happy with how that turned out. It looks fantastic. Okay, just need to get this last little bit that I've kind of been putting off. Just to avoid the hard part a little bit longer. All right, here we go. Beautiful. On to the second row. Let's see, what am I doing? I'm at an hour and 13 minutes. So, still not bad. Not bad. And once we're finished here, we're going to have a lot of completed models. So, that is something to be celebrated. But for sure, having the assembly line here is definitely making things more efficient. Like if I tried to just do one complete model at a time, I feel like that would be taking a lot longer. It'd be certainly be a lot more switching of paints. It'd be much more laborious. not as much fun. And we want to have fun, we want to do this as a hobby, do it because we want to, not out of a sense of obligation or spite. Like, damn it, I bought these models, I'm going to paint them. Nah, I don't want to feel like that. Okay, this one's definitely going faster than the last one. Still got a couple little trickly spots here under and around his jaw, but it's nothing insurmountable. And again, his jaw is metal here, so if we accidentally paint on that, it is not the end of the world, because the metallic will cover it up nicely. Okay, just about good here. Got a couple little bits to clean up. So again, we don't want those gaps. All right, just finish up the front of his tabard here. Or I don't know, actually, I think this is a robe, because he's got it tied with a rope around the middle, and it looks to be just like one continuous piece of fabric. So, robe for this guy, maybe a tabard for some of the others, but let me get myself a little drink here. Give my hand a little bit of a rest. Okay. This guy's a bit more open. He's waving his arms up high. He's yelling, "Ah!" Yelling the battle cry of his people. Whatever that may be. It could just be, "Ah, don't kill me." Makes me think of the goblins from Warcraft 3. And I think it was the Goblin Zeppelin was kind of like Beavis and Butthead. Like, if you kept clicking on him, eventually he'd say, "Are you threatening me?" Like Beavis. Uh I think that was the Goblin Zeppelin. I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was the Goblin Zeppelin that had the Beavis line. Okay, almost there. And this will be number 12. And just about an hour and 20 minutes. So I kind of figure if I have 2 hours today, so if I can get them with all the skin and all of their shirts done in 2 hours, I think that will be very good. That will be a good accomplishment. Then I'll just have their hoods, which I'm going to do in Basilicanum Gray, and then their gloves and shoes, which I was going to use snakebite leather for, and then their weapons, which are going to be lead belcher and some other kind of brown for the handles. Either probably not snakebite leather, maybe uh, Gargax sewer or skeleton horde. One of the two, some kind of brown shade or contrast. But yeah, these ones actually look pretty darn good. The striking scorpion green is a lot brighter when you first put it on, and then it kind of dulls down a little bit when it dries. It actually looks really good for these guys, I think. Oh, and this guy's nice and wide open. He's easy to paint his shirt, I should say. I don't know. Is he easy otherwise? Who knows? Don't think I really care to speculate on not the potentials of Gnoblar promiscuity. Suffice it to say, he is relatively easy to paint in this particular pose. It is not causing undue stress. Though I have to say, with the way some of their tabards and robes are shaped in the lower half, and the way they're standing, it does kind of look like a diaper a little bit. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Almost there. Just got to get that last little bit. Okay. That's 13. Give the old brush a wash and make sure. Yeah, it's doing great. No paint accumulation. Or if there is, I can't tell. So, brush is proceeding quite well. Yeah, I've been impressed with this brush. It's nice. And another arm that needs green painting, but diapers, gobbo diapers. Now we know what's in that gobbo sack. Replacement diapers for when his guys freak out. It very well could be. Very well could be. The bosses don't want a poopy battlefield, so he has to bring the nappies for his buddies. Maybe he irritated the boss, and that's why he gets that unfortunate duty or job. No pun intended. Okay, it's a sling that this guy has. Looks like he's probably got like a rock or something right there. It's like, is this a whip? Nah, it's really small to be a whip. That and he's holding it like folded over at one end. Don't think that's how you use a whip. Probably because it's not, and this is not a whip. At least I'm pretty sure it's a sling. This little guy is coming together nicely. And then one more, and that'll be it for the Flesh Terrors red. We'll be moving on to the Berserker Bloodshade. See how that looks. Nope. Got a little bit here where his shorts kind of blend in with his leg. The distinction's a little tricky. There we go. That's better. Okay. We are doing good. Get the last of the Flesh Terrors red gobbos here. I wonder if there is any difference, like game wise, between these Gnoblars and goblins, or if they're the same thing and they're just called something different, not goblins or gobbos, or if goblins are like a slightly different species, or even just a different type of unit. Maybe like Gnoblars are kind of poorly equipped or with just like whatever they can find, and gobbos have like clan issued or tribe issued weaponry. All right, looking good there. All right, this last little bit's a little tricky here. carefully. Okay, just going to finish up his leg here. He's got his cutoffs. All right, nice. That is the last of the Gnoblars who are getting the Flesh Terrors red shirts. The rest will be getting Berserker Bloodshades shirts. Snag a quick drink. Hello, if you just joined us. I was attempting to paint 20 Gnoblars in 60 minutes. That did not happen. I'm running up against just under an hour and a half here. So rather than can I do these in 60 minutes, how much can I do in 2 hours is now the question. But we are making good progress. Moving on to the Berserker Bloodshade here. Let's see how that looks as clothing for their shirts and vests and pants. And this guy's got a helmet, so it's no big deal if we accidentally paint part of his noodle, because the metallics will cover that right up. As expected, the contrast, which would have been the Flesh Terrors red, is a good deal more opaque. This is just a shade. So you're seeing a lot more of like the gray shading come through. Not a bad thing, just different. Oh, thanks. Good points, tips on the assembly line painting, grouping like models, benefits of one paint color at a time. Yeah, thanks. It's definitely served me well here, and it usually does elsewhere. Like painting my granates, I'll arrange a squad of like 5 or 10 and just do the line. Because by the time you get to the end, the first guy you painted's dry and you can move on to the next color. So not bad. Not bad on the shade. Different. Missed a little spot that I swore I got there. Yeah. I'm liking it. And I do also have a bale red contrast I can use, though for my money that seemed a little bit bright, like a little too bright. Which again, if these were like second edition, it would fit right in, but anymore, I don't know, it seems a little too like parade bright. Like if this guy was part of like a formal army, then it might work, but yeah. I tried to test it with it a while ago and it was too bright. It's too much. But this is going well. It's just a little tricky sometimes to finagle the paint like under ears and under like the caps that some of them wear. But nice. Bring a little bit more paint up top here. Here we go. I feel like this is going on quicker than the contrast, which would make sense. It's a thinner paint, but yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it's going a little faster. Not good or bad, just different. It could also be a function of I've already done 10 and I have a better sense of what needs to be done. Got a little tricky place going up to his shoulder there. There we go. Okay, and we're good. And I need to paint his ear green. All-time favorite 40K novel. Wow. That's a tough call. Cuz a few years ago my brother was kind enough to get me started on the Horus Heresy series and I read quite a few and those are good books, like really good. Um Man, I can't remember any one specific Horus Heresy book that I thought was like especially standout because there were a lot of them that were really good. I read what is it? Phil Kelly's War of Secrets, and that was okay. Like I read it for the Dark Angel stuff, but the Tau were also a fairly large component of the story, which I don't know. I felt like they didn't really need to be. Like I understood how they were important in the beginning of the story, but it seemed like their role kind of faded a little bit and almost felt a little forced at times. So I'm also currently reading the Grey Knight Omnibus that has three different Grey Knight novels. There's Dark Mechanicum and two others whose titles I can't remember. But so far they've been pretty good. But let's see. I'm trying to remember. I think it was one of the first Horus Heresy novels to feature um, one of the loyalist. I think he was Death Guard. Nathaniel Garrow was his name. And I thought he was a pretty interesting character, not just because, if I remember correctly, he was tapped to become one of the original Grey Knights. And I think he refused and wound up doing jobs for Malkador the Sigillite. I think. Don't quote me. I'm not like a super huge 40K historian. But yeah, I think one of the first novels that had Garrow in it I thought was really good. It might have been Flight of the Eisenstein. I can't remember exactly. It's been quite a long time. But I do remember that what I read of the Horus Heresy series, I really liked. Like, I didn't read a single one of the novels that I thought was, you know, not that great or could have been left out. And like I said, War of Secrets was okay. I just felt it could have done, like, if they really wanted to do the Tau stuff, that could have been a separate novel because I didn't really think it tied in with the Dark Angel stuff all that well. But I don't know. Maybe there's a sequel where they talked about it a bit more. I don't know. But for sure, though, the Black Library has put out a lot of really good books. And I would recommend reading at least some of the Horus Heresy series, just so you can get a sense for the founding days of the Imperium, which I think is pretty cool. All right, 5 down. And yeah, these are quite different. Like looking at the coverage of the Berserker Bloodshade versus the Flesh Terrors Red, quite different. quite different. Both good for different reasons, but I don't know. Forced to choose, I kind of like the Berserker Bloodshade a little bit better. But that's just me. Ooh, I have an idea. It's either going to work really well or not so well with the Coelia Green Shade Gnoblars here. We'll see. Like, because it's not as opaque and it's more translucent, which it's supposed to be, I think the Coelia Green Shade, more than the Athonian Camo Shade, is a bit lighter. So this might kind of complement that. We'll see. And it also looks different when I first put it on as opposed to when it dries. But so far, I'm liking it. Now, this is going to be a little tricky, painting his chest without painting his club. Okay. I mean, it's not a huge deal. He's leaning so far forward that unless you like intentionally picked him up and turned him over, you would almost never see his chest. Like you can barely see that little triangle of it right there. But yeah, it was quick to paint at the very least. Actually, I think I'm going to start with that little bit this time just so I can get it out of the way. Actually, there's a tiny little bit on the side there that I didn't see on this first guy. And zoop, there we go. Easy peasy. Or I've been playing the 40k Dark Tide game with a friend of mine who was kind enough to get it for me, and uh, the Ogren sometimes says when things go really well, he say easy as rations, or at least the voice I chose for him. There are actually several distinct voices you can choose for each of the characters based on their upbringing and their home world. So the character creation system I thought was actually really cool. And like certain eye colors and hair colors are available or not available depending on where your character is from. Like if your character is from Cadia, there are unique voices and eye colors specific to Cadian characters. But no matter what, the Ogren's kind of funny because Ogren are supposed to be, not very intelligent. And yeah, it's not that the Ogren sounds like an idiot. He's just kind of simple, kind of innocent in a way. But I've been impressed with Dark Tide so far. It's been a lot of fun. Yes, it has certainly been buggy. Like they should have taken a few more months to clean it up before release. But that being said, I've had an absolute blast with it despite the bugs. And the scenery is just absolutely beautiful. Like anyone who tells you they get sick of the scenery, then that's just sad because the environments are so beautiful, so dilapidated, most of them, but it's a hive world. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a clean hive world with like, probably a billion people living in one giant city. Or I don't know, multiple billions maybe even. But it's been a lot of fun. The gear progression has been cool, getting to unlock new weapons for your characters. I really enjoy that. So, awesome. What am I looking at? hour and 43 minutes, and I got 2 more to put the clothing on. Not bad, not bad at all. So yeah, if you get a chance to play Dark Tide, definitely take it. It's worth it if you're interested in 40k games. Some people may tell you it's kind of like Left for Dead, just 40k, and it bears some similarities, but I don't think that's quite fair. I think Dark Tide has a lot of things that Left 4 Dead did not. It has, a living system, it's got gear other than just like the stuff you pick up. So it's got a crafting system that, while admittedly incomplete at the moment, should hopefully be finished soon. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun with it, and I'm still having fun modeling and painting. Even after doing it for a lot of years, and even after doing it for YouTube, which I've heard some people say that, making videos of your hobby can turn it into work. And I can see how that would happen, but I'm still enjoying it, still having fun. Running up against some time crunches a few times, not gonna lie, but that's just the time of year. I teach English at 2 colleges, and fall and winter are far and away my busiest times of the year. So when it gets to summer, making content will be a lot easier because I'll have probably 0 to 2 classes. And fall term, I had 7, and this term I have 6. And for comparison, a full-time load is 3 classes, but I don't have to do like the committee work and other stuff that a full-time instructor would do. So it would be really cool to be able to do this and make videos of this full time. I don't know if that'll ever happen or when it'll happen, but I have very much enjoyed it. Almost there. You better let it loose. They're right behind me. Almost there. Sorry, I've been watching a lot of Star Wars stuff the last few days. Watched, I'd already seen Mandalorian season 2, which was awesome, but I watched Andor, the Book of Boba Fett, and what there is so far of season 2 of The Bad Batch. And all were good. Like, The Mandalorian's fantastic, and the Book of Boba Fett was good. I feel like Mandalorian was better, but it turns out there's actually a lot of overlap, especially later in the series. And Andor was just straight up awesome. All right. Whew, that is all the skin and all the clothing, except for the little bits I forgot. So excellent. I'm at an hour 47. So take a little break, a little sip here, and I think I'll probably use the Basilicanum Gray on their caps because that's relatively straightforward. And we'll see how much of that I can get done in 11 minutes. But I am so glad I got a paint shaker. It's a Vivo one, if you can see it in the background here. I got it off Amazon for like $36, and it has really saved my wrists. Like, I would be in a lot of pain if I kept having to shake paint pots by hand, especially contrast paints, because if you leave contrast paints to sit for more than a little bit, they settle. Like, you can really see it in darker ones like Basilicanum Gray. There's this sediment that's part of the pigment or something. I'm not sure exactly, but it settles to the bottom, and the paint won't look right if it's not really shaken well, and that can take a long time and be painful if you have like wrist problems or tendonitis like I do. So, oh, have I read the Karen Travis Clone War books? I have not. I have not. It's actually been a really long time since I read a Star Wars book. The last one I did read was one of the post trilogy books by Timothy Zahn. I think it was Dark Force Rising. Man, and I think I read that at least 20 years ago. So it's been a while. But Karen Travis, I will look that up when I am done. It'll probably be, admittedly, a long time until I get to it because I have a huge backlog of books to read. But I will note that for future reading because I do love to read. And I do love Star Wars. It would be a lie to say otherwise. Even the new stuff. I know some people kind of hate on the new stuff, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it. And I enjoy it for different reasons too. And I remember seeing a late night interview with George Lucas. I think he was actually on The Daily Show. And this was, oh good lord, feeling my age a bit. This was probably at least 20 years ago. Um, well, maybe actually 15 years ago. I don't know. Anyway, this was before they started making the post trilogy. This was before Disney bought Lucasfilm. But after he had made the pre trilogy. So this was maybe 2009, 2012. He was talking about how new generations of fans like the newer movies. They like episodes 1, 2, and 3, and they think episodes 4, 5, and 6 are kind of slow and boring. And as a millennial who grew up with 4, 5, and 6, at first I balked. I was like, what? Like 1, 2, and 3 better? How could you? Blasphemy. But now I can kind of see it. I can kind of see how, if you saw them in numerical order, you know, 1, 2, and 3 might be more interesting for you, might be more entertaining. But oh, cool. They're epic. Take you through, up to Order 66 from a clone special forces unit perspective and a few Jedi. They even had a Mandalorian. Oh, a Mandalorian Jedi. Okay. So wait, that can't be the Mandalorian Jedi, the Darksaber Jedi, because he was a long time before the Clone Wars, if I remember correctly. But that's cool. That's cool. I will definitely check those out. Thank you for the recommendation. Get a bit more at the back of his head here. And these guys aren't wearing anything. That's a metal helmet. Ah, here we go. Okay, it is someone else. All right. That's what I figured because I was pretty sure the Mandalorian Jedi who made the Darksaber was a long time before the Clone Wars. Which I think is pretty cool. I love that Star Wars has developed like a canon of multi millennia. Like you got the Old Republic stuff, whether you enjoy the Knights of the Old Republic games or you played the Old Republic MMO. Both were good for different reasons. But yeah, its lore has expanded so much. gone so many places, explored so many characters. And I guess in a way, the 40K lore has done that too. I mean, it runs 10,000 years from the Horus Heresy. Actually, it's a little more than that, isn't it? Isn't the current world in like Millennium or M42 or 43? I don't remember exactly. But a lot of history there. Some of it has been written over, like I mentioned I grew up with the second edition box set, and that had some really cool books in it. It had the rule book, but it also had a war gear book, which was just like more explanation of how like chain swords and bolt guns worked. And it also had this thing called the Codex Imperialis, which is like the history of the Imperium, and it had some rule stuff too. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Though it did mention some things which I think have been retconned in the intervening 30-ish years since that came out. I want to say in the early or mid 90s. It does have some really cool art though. Really cool. You get some John Blanche stuff in there and a few other artists. And that's also where I think it's in the War Gear book is a really old picture of a Space Marine Terminator. And in the space above his helmet is written, "And they shall know no fear." And that's where the rule came from. And it's a really cool picture because this Terminator looks like seriously badass. Okay, I think just a couple other guys with caps. Nice. And I think I do like the Berserker Blood shade with the Coelia Green shade for these guys. It looks a little washed out almost, but since both the colors have, they're both shades rather than contrasts, so they have that kind of washed out look, I think it really works for them. Beautiful. Then I don't know. Call me crazy. It feels like the detail with the shades is a bit more noticeable than it is just with the contrast paints. I don't know what it is about it, but fantastic. That's all the hoods. So I think I'm just about out of time here. So what I'm going to do is use the snakebite leather and just do one, maybe two guys as um, wraps on his feet and his hands. And I want to use a different brown for the shield, so I'm not going to do that. Here we go. I'll do this little guy. And then he will be pretty much done. Just need to do the lead belcher on his weapon. Okay. And as we're kind of checking boxes off on our to-do list here, and it feels like it's going faster. Feels like it's going easier. And of course, we are painting smaller parts on the model, so it is going faster and easier because we're covering less surface. I don't know. The feeling of accomplishment is kicking in, and that is always nice. To feel like we've done something, even if he's not display quality. I think this little guy is still going to look mad decent on a tabletop. And certainly a damn sight better than just gray plastic. Not that I'm shaming anyone who just plays the game with gray plastic. I'm not shaming you. Just saying I would not care to do that. That's all. That's not my style. That's all. All right. I think I'm going to do his wolf's head or whatever that is a different color. But other than that, I think we're going to call him good. Yeah. Hey, Gobos. Thank you for showing up and being my first viewer here. Very much appreciated. So that is all the time I have for today. Hopefully, be streaming again in the relatively near future. I don't know if I have the time to make it a regular thing just yet, but hopefully soon. But for sure, there'll be the regular video on Sunday. So thanks for coming. Hope you have a great rest of your day and see you soon.